The world's #2 team came to this tournament as the favorite. They had the best midfield in international football. The system was in their hands. They had a history, and they couldn't score against a country of 500,000. Spain had possession of the ball for 70% of the match. They took a total of 18 shots. Spain had better players in every position on the field, and still nothing. 0 goals against Cape Verde. But the important thing is this wasn't luck. This was a formula. A defensive formula that has silently defeated football giants for decades. And in this video, we will explain exactly how it works, and let us show you which other teams in this tournament used the same tactic. Let's start with what the world saw on June 18th. Spain entered the tournament as the defending champion. They had perfected their possession game. Ownership means control. Control means domination. This was the narrative Spain believed. Cape Verde entered the tournament with a GDP 75 times lower than Spain's. It had less football infrastructure. It was investing less in development. However, Cape Verde entered with a plan. Cape Verde did something interesting from the first minute. They didn't try to play football. They didn't try to match Spain's possession or press aggressively. Instead, Cape Verde built a wall, a deep defensive line. For most of the match, 11 players stayed in their own half. When Spain had the ball, Cape Verde waited. When Spain attacked, Cape Verde Islands retreated even further. When Spain created a gap, the Cape Verde Islands filled that gap with their bodies. Spain dominated. Spain exerted pressure. Spain made 17 shots in the open game, but Spain could not advance because Cape Verde had not assembled a team designed to win football matches. Cape Verde had assembled a team designed to not concede goals against a specific type of opponent, teams that rely on ball possession and complex passing plays. The match ended goalless. Spain advanced to the next round in the group stage thanks to superior goal difference. However, the situation changed. Spain was not invincible. Spain could have been neutralized, and this neutralization did not result from a better team, but from a better defensive system. Here's the interesting part. This result surprised the media. However, it did not surprise the data, because when you measure how small countries with limited resources beat big countries with superior capabilities, a pattern emerges. And this pattern is not random, it's mathematical. It can be repeated. It is a formula. The formula has 3 components. First, low-level defense. This is nothing new in football. Low defense means playing deep defense, giving up possession of the ball, and focusing on counterattacks. However, Cape Verde did not merely adopt a low-profile defense. Cape Verde displayed a defense that was lower than Spain had expected. When Spain wanted to build from behind, the Cape Verde Islands retreated to the fortress line. When Spain wanted to create a middle ground, the Cape Verde Islands squeezed in the middle. When Spain sought to expand its territory, Cape Verde gained numerical superiority on the flanks. The purpose of a low block is not to win the ball. The goal is to create a space. Spain had the ball in 70% of the match, but he managed to create a gap in perhaps 20% of it. This mismatch, high possession but limited space, is disappointing, makes hasty decisions, creates mistakes. Second rule, disciplined and tight-knit play. Cape Verde's defenders did not chase the ball. They maintained their positions. They played a tight game. They relied on team play more than their individual abilities. This meant that when Spain's midfielders found space, the Cape Verde defenders were already there. When Spain's counterattacks attempted to create overlap, the Cape Verde midfielders had already closed the gaps. This requires tremendous discipline. It requires 11 players to fully understand without looking at where their teammates are. It requires relying on a system rather than individual defensive capabilities. Large countries often fail in this regard because their players tend to be more individualistic. Cape Verde succeeded because its players had fewer options. They had to trust the system. They had to trust each other. They didn't have any superstars to save them. Thirdly, clinical effectiveness in counterattack. Spain fired 18 shots. Cape Verde, however, fired perhaps 3 shots. However, these 3 attacks were dangerous because when the Cape Verde Islands attacked, they did so with numerical superiority. They did it quickly. He did it on purpose. Spain's defensive players faced a full-strength Cape Verde team that suddenly retreated rapidly after disintegrating from the attack. The threat was real. The danger existed. That dynamic, low possession but high efficiency reversed the pressure. Spain didn't just need to score goals. Spain needed to score a goal without giving up. This changed everything about how Spain played. Spain became more cautious. Spain became less adventurous. Spain became afraid. That's the formula. Now, an interesting question. Is this a Cape Verdean invention? No. This formula has been used for decades. They have defeated better teams many times. Look at Saudi Arabia in 2022. Saudi Arabia was in a ranking position far behind Argentina. However, Saudi Arabia applied the same formula used by Cape Verde: low blockage, disciplined compactness, clinical counterattacks. The defending champion Argentina scored. However, Saudi Arabia scored first. The pressure has changed. Argentina won in the end, but the story had changed. Watch Morocco throughout the 2022 tournament. Morocco's strength wasn't in ball possession. Morocco's strength was organization. Morocco set up a low defensive line. Morocco narrowed the spaces. Morocco waited, and Morocco advanced to the semi-finals. Teams with superior skills were disappointed by Morocco's defensive discipline. We have seen this once again in this tournament. Tournament favorite and #1 seeded Brazil was drawn against Morocco. Again, low defensive discipline. Again, a disciplined and compact game. Again, effectiveness in counterattacks. The formula works. It's been working for years. However, the media discourse does not accept this fact. The rhetoric says that talent is superior to discipline. The discourse says that superior teams defeat organized teams. The discourse says that the possession game is superior to the defensive game. The data, however, shows something different. So why isn't this pattern noticed? Because the teams that use it successfully are never the ones we focus on. We focus on Spain because Spain is famous. We focus on Brazil because Brazil is the favorite team. We are not focusing on Cape Verde because Cape Verde is not a well-known team. The pattern is the same. The formula is the same. The results change only because our attention in the narrative differs. Here's what the media saw. Spain failed to score. Shock. Sadness. Here's what the data shows: a defensive structure specifically designed to hinder Spain's football style. Success comes through strategy. Some interpret this as a surprise, others view it as a tactic. The difference is significant. If this had been a matter of chance, the Cape Verde Islands would have been easily defeated in the next match. If this was a strategy, Cape Verde would repeat it. The tournament will show us that. However, if you understand the formula, you already know about low block size, compactness, and counterattack efficiency. Now comes the important question for the rest of this tournament. Which other teams use the same formula that Cape Verde used against Spain? What other weak teams have low ball possession? What other countries with limited resources play disciplined defensive football? Which other teams are willing to sacrifice low ball possession in exchange for defensive solidity? There are 48 teams in this tournament. Many of them are weak teams. Many of them lack the resources that Europe's traditional powers have. Many are facing a ranking difference of 50, 60, or 70 places. However, the ranking difference does not determine World Cup success. The formula determines this. Teams that understand this, low block plus disciplined compactness plus clinical counterattack equals competitive results, will surprise us. These teams will be disappointed. These teams will prove that World Cup football is not about who has the better players. The important thing is who has the better formula. And the formula is surprisingly consistent. This Cape Verde result tells us something very important, especially regarding the 2026 World Cup. The expanded 48-team format was supposed to create a more competitive balance. He needed to give more underdogs a chance, and that's exactly what happened. But what no one anticipated was that this would bring about a tactical shift. With more teams participating, more traditional strong teams are facing off against more teams willing to play low-block defensive football. With more teams, more players from smaller countries understand that individual talent cannot compete with Spain's possession game. Therefore, they prefer discipline over aggression. They choose structure over creativity. They choose the formula. Spain expected domination. They were hoping to convert possession into goals. They were expecting their system to outperform Cape Verde's system, and it would be in a traditional tournament. However, in this tournament, with 48 teams participating and more countries employing more complex tactics, the old assumptions no longer hold true. The favorites can still win, but they can no longer assume they will achieve easy victories. Now, every match has become a potential formula-based surprise match that is expected to happen. So the question is, which other traditional power will be neutralized by an unexpected formula? Which other favorite team will have 70% possession and score 0 goals? Which team will later realize that dominance is not guaranteed? So what does this tell us about who will actually win this tournament? Because if Cape Verde has understood the formula well enough to draw 0-0 against the number 2 team in the world, what do the other weak teams see that we can't? Now we will examine this. Soccer fashion. The first thing numbers see.